Agentic AI is moving fast, but so is the industry. But most of the conversation is still focused on models. The fact is, real bottleneck for enterprise adoption is something else. It's somewhere else. It's trust. As organizations start wiring agents into business systems, identity, policy, connectivity, governance, compliance, they become mission critical. That is why two recent moves from Tetrate matters for the ecosystem. One is the launch of the Agentic AI Foundation, where Tetrate is a founding gold member, and second is the debut of their new Agent Router Enterprise product. These both point to a future where secure, governed connectivity becomes the backbone of AI system. And joining me today is once again Varun Talwar, CTO of Tetrate, to talk about these two announcements. Varun, AAIF just launched and you folks are founding gold members of the foundation. Can you talk about why did the ecosystem need this foundation at this point, and what role is Tetrate playing in this space?
First of all, to give people background, I'm Varun, CTO for Tetrate, and for me this is second time this movie is playing. Right, so I was at the early stage of when CNCF and Cloud Native and Kubernetes was getting formed, and over the last 10 years, I've seen like how that grew in adoption everywhere, and this is yet another movement like that, but it's just going probably 3 times faster, right? If not more. So, the Agentics, you referred to the right things in terms of open source, and what really open source brings is the innovation of the wider industry and community together, and problems come out faster, and people get to resolutions and make things move faster as we can bring the energy of all the companies. In terms of this specific announcement, right? We were already working into it for last 1 year. So as some of you may know, like we were one of the largest contributors to Envoy, gRPC, all these kinds of connectivity projects in CNCF. So for us, this is like taking that connectivity layer now into the AI space, right? The reason MCP donation was important as an industry, I think it was gaining adoption and the industry needed the comfort of neutrality of MCP. So I think it was a good move from Anthropic and the wider industry to do that because it just brings that comfort. The other is, Tetrate being core into the connectivity, security, that layer. We were already playing into how do proxies and all these gateways and all these things understand these newer protocols. So we have, last MCP summit we had announced, Envoy AI Gateway supports MCP. So we were already in the ecosystem and hence aware of some of these movements. And it's great to see not just, it's the new age AI companies, it's the cloud providers and some end users coming together here to start this foundation. And there's a lot of lessons learned from prior CNCF journey that, people like us will be able to bring to the table to make it even better. And I think, it will enable overall agent building stack to move even faster. And because some of the things MCP brings in terms of, standardization and elimination of fragmentation, we are already seeing, second generation of MCP spec, which happened like a few weeks ago, additional features and so on. So things will hopefully move much faster with this official umbrella that's got formed yesterday.
When we talk about agentic AI in real enterprise environments, connectivity becomes a huge challenge. These agents need the same rigor we expect in modern service connectivity. Can you talk about the complexity at the intersection of network, security, identity, governance, and protocol, which is there.
No, this is one of those hidden layers in the agentic stack that doesn't get talked about as much, but is going to be critical if we were to, as we embrace this. So, fundamentally, we are shifting from, human speed traffic that's predictable, low concurrency, to agent speed workloads that are recursive, bursty, massive, not always with predictable outcome, long running, and the enterprise backends of today, they were built more for user interaction, human interaction, right? One request and going to end systems, response, and it was not architected with an agentic kind of application architecture where one request can recursively fan out to thousands of subsystems, go to different models, go to different APIs, collect things. And when an agent, sends a request like that to refactor a code base or to, issue fix something in security logs or something to a legacy database or an end user, like it doesn't feel like a normal request. It feels like a DDoS attack has happened on the system. So, you need to fundamentally think about your control plane for these backend infrastructures. It's going to put a lot more pressure from a security standpoint, identity standpoint on our backend APIs. And those are the ones giving context and intelligence and data to the models to do right things that we want it to do. Right? So I think it's time that we start to think about our backend APIs to be first class, modular, tools ready, MCP ready, with inbuilt security, with identity. As if we don't do those things, a lot of this promise of this sort of agent native, if I can call it, architecture is not going to get delivered, and so and I think people are starting to realize that is the case. And a lot more people are starting to ask us about what they need to do for getting ready for this.
MCP, as we all know, has quickly become the industry's reference for agent connectivity and interoperability. And it's also one of the first major projects under this new foundation. Can you talk about the use of MCP internally at Tetrate and supporting complementary projects like Envoy AI Gateway, which we talked about in the past? And if you can talk about what is your take on MCP and why is it becoming so important and critical right now for enterprises?
I think MCP at the heart of it is basically to enable solve some of the integration problems, right? See, models at the end of it are only as intelligent as the context that you can give them from your backend systems, right? And as the name says, model context protocol. So it's a standardized way for models to query backend tools, be it data, be it APIs, to get the context that they need to do the action that they need to do. And that standardization, which is what MCP is eliminates fragmentation and different people doing it in different ways, makes bridging into all the legacy and enterprise systems much easier, which is needed for this to happen. It pre-embeds, within the spec certain elements like governance and security, which are essential. And what Tetrate has done in the last year or so, besides making Envoy and more AI and MCP ready, is also some in our services that are built on top of Envoy, like Tetrate Agent Router Service, enhance the MCP security even further and make it easier to use. So that so I'll give you an example there, right? So if you go to Claude and connect, you want to give it a file from your Google Drive, right? Which is a common thing. It has now 70, 100 plus connectors there, and you connect it, and some of the permissions there is to read, write, delete some of the things from your Google Drive. Now imagine you're an organization who's on G Suite, have all your data in G Suite, and you're giving that permission. And now, inadvertently also, you basically just gave all your enterprise, read, write, delete access to that prompt. And if you're in a world where you don't know exactly how to write prompts, and which is right, and you don't really know how to give permissions, it can be potentially quite quite big of an issue, right? And this is just one small example I'm giving as a user using it in a prompt. But now all the systems that are getting built in the enterprise with SDKs, they need to make sure that confidentiality, integrity of data, and all is kept all the time. And overlaying on top of MCP, we need to have easier ways where it is enforced, and even inadvertently, you cannot leak data that you're not supposed to leak. You cannot have people read data that they were not supposed to have access to in the first place, but because of security holes in the access path that happened. So hence it's like front and center of enterprise right now, because it's actually one of the biggest things I have seen across C-level executives in enterprise in the last sort of 6 months is I want to roll out agents faster, but security and organization, be it CISO, CIO, however they're set up, is a blocker to getting me there. How do I get past that so that I can enable innovation, but do it, keep my risk in check?
This year, you have been very clear about Tetrate's AI strategy, and MCP sits right at the center. You often describe Tetrate's work as building the backbone of the agentic stack. What does this mean, and what has Tetrate built so far? And are you looking at it as a building block or foundational technology?
I think it's building blocks, because this overall stack is wide, so wide that you need actually a lot of companies to come together and do, which is kind of why the foundation even makes sense, right? And I'll give you I can answer this in a very good way by taking sort of a life of a request, and it will tie it to the foundation story as well. So if you take any given request from a prompt, right, the usual flow is it will go to, you first have to pick the model that it needs to go to, right? So it could be OpenAI, Claude, you referred to some of the model innovation from China, DeepSeek, and so on. So one of the first things in our service in Tetrate Agent Router Service, for example, is pick the model, right? And so there's an LLM catalog. You can pick one of whatever model that makes sense. And nowadays, there is even intelligence getting built in semantic matching, so that we can automatically pick which model is right for you, because users generally don't know. Once you pick the model, usually the request goes from model to some MCP, like what is the MCP server that it needs. So for example, if I'm building a sales agent, then, and I pick Claude as my model, or then from there I need access to Salesforce MCP server to get my sales data, right? So now it goes from model via MCP to Salesforce MCP server. So Now the question companies are asking is, oh, how do I find the MCP servers? Where do I run it? How do I connect it? What permission should be given to the model from Salesforce? Should I give it all my accounts data? Should I give it all my customer data? What data should I give? How should I give it? Right? So, and then, so the other thing then we added in Tetrate Agent Router Services ability to find MCP servers, spin them up in one click, and create MCP profiles so you can easily access them. Right? Once you have that data, then you usually it goes to your backend APIs to your actual revenue system to do take some action, or to your CR, other systems to take some action. So in throughout these, you will see that connectivity and keeping the context of what the user was doing, a lot of actions on behalf of, like this, because it starts with the user, then to a model, then to an MCP server, then to APIs, and you have to keep context security in all this while. And without that, you actually don't have proper end-to-end security. And that's what we have actually been building in Tetrate Agent Router Service. And one good example is of this sales agent is, for example, Goose, which is another project that got donated into the foundation with Block. We are already the default model provider in Goose, which we were even before the announcement of the foundation. And Goose is like a agent builder, right? So you can go into Goose, pick a model from Agent Router Service. We can connect to an MCP server via MCP, and that actually shows how a small example like a sales agent can come together, and via bringing these technologies that are coming in this foundation from companies together. Right? So I think it's important for people to know that, because otherwise they feel like, oh, what is Block doing with Goose here, and what is it's hard for people to connect the dots of why these projects and companies are coming together, and how this will actually create a simple thing like making a simple sales agent that they would want to.
You mentioned Agent Router. Let's talk about your new offering as well, Agent Router Enterprise. It is designed to prepare organizations for what you call agent readiness. What does that agent readiness look like in practice, and what problem does this new offering solve?
Yeah, so it's extending from what I was saying, right? Like the problem it is solving is predictable. So first problem is I have the security confidence to roll it out, which is where right now a lot of executives are stuck in organizations, right? They're not able to roll out, blocked by security and so on. So that's number one. Second is, once you roll out, can you rely on this? Is it predictable outcome that I can rely on, right? And every time I run it, will it predictably give me the same thing? And can I make decisions on what it's telling me, right? And we have internally within Tetrate also started to use some of these things, and it's a good idea to dog food anyway. So I think those are the two big problems, like getting past the security wall and getting the comfort that it's a predictable, reliable thing that I can trust. And then the third piece I would say is then enabling access for developers, right? So because you do need a way for people to actually consume these things. So once you've reliably built, so that's sort of the third piece it's solving, and that's really when agents sort of get into the hands of actual people who can then innovate on top of it. Because once you give it all the necessary plumbing and make it easy for people to just write it as if they were just writing their simple Java apps, then I think if you let the developer innovation actually go through.
Organizations are already using AI and they are putting it almost everywhere. But as our organizations try to scale AI agents, safely? I mean, because we can open the whole can of worms about privacy, compliance, all those things. But what are some of the biggest gaps that you see today when it comes to things like privacy, governance, identity, and a lot of things related to that? And how does this new connectivity layer that Tetrate is building help close this gap? And if you can also expand on that how this foundation may further help organizations just the way Kubernetes helped organizations to embrace it at a scale.
The number one sort of problem is that, as I said before, is in people's mind is of security, right? Their biggest fear at the board level, at the CISO level is, can I really expose? I got all these, I have Cursor, I have Claude, I have all of these things, and is it something I can give to people? That's like the number one question that around security that is there. I think that's like the first top level blocker. And recently I was in a summit of one of the largest banks, and they were like, once you get past that, and they got past that in this year, really what they're struggling with now is they put it for code generation use case. So because that was sort of the first use case that got popular for the use of AI. They got statistics to say, okay, it can generate code faster than what humans were doing. But now the question is it quality? Is it really something that is going to have business impact? Is it something we can maintain? Is it something we can support? Is it something we can extend? So now there's questions on the next step is it quality business impacting thing that it's generating from a code generation standpoint? So that's just to give you an example of where organizations are in terms of the biggest blockers. Either first thing is to get the comfort of security. Once they get past this, is the comfort of either predictable outcome or quality outcome. And once those two, and a lot of leaders are asking those questions and then asking the ROI question as it relates to cost, right? Because, okay, I'm spending so much on it, it's not cheap. What is the ROI I'm getting at the end of it, right? And those are also unanswered sort of questions. And to your, these are harder, bigger problems that will take the whole wider industry to come together to answer effectively, right? Even a simple question of ROI is needs a lot of work across many layers of the stack to add up to the prove that it's ROI positive, right? So I'm looking forward to it. I think this umbrella and foundation should bring more conversations happening sooner, faster, and hopefully we get to end state sooner.
No, so very excited. Before that, just last question. Of course, we don't know how things will look like, how things will pan out. But if I ask you, because of this foundation in place, because of the whole Envoy AI gateway, MCP, and other technologies, I'm not going to ask you what this foundation will look like in 20 to 18 months, but I would ask you, what is your ideal vision of what it should look like?
One of the features we have added in our product is to, when you have to debug requests on MCP, like how do you trace an actual MCP request all the way, right? And so there were certain things missing in the MCP spec and trace metadata that we think should be added. We were actually in a meeting with Anthropic and MCP maintainers, and they were like, yep, we should solve this. This should just be standard. And like, okay, how do we solve this? Okay, let's form a working group here on gateways. You guys get this started, put a request there on an extension proposal. I'll take that on. We'll get it discussed in the next community thing. We'll drive it forward. And in the next MCP spec, it will get there. Right. So This is just a small example, working example of real from like literally this week of what a good would look like, right? You directly talk to the people who are maintaining the thing that needs to be extended, explain that this should happen, put it together, and all the stakeholders are there who can say, yep, this makes sense, it gets there, and in 3 months from now, we are able to trace MCP better. It's a very small example, but you apply this into many problem layers across many groups. SDK, governance, auth, registries, like so many areas. And if you're making progress like this across all these dimensions, I think that's what a good would look like. With enough collaboration from end users, so that we are doing the right things, because that's important as well. Right? So,
Varun, thank you so much for joining me and breaking this down. It is clear that as enterprises shift from experimenting with agents to deploying them in production, the connectivity, governance, and trust layer becomes essential, not an afterthought. So thanks for sharing those insights, and I look forward to chat with you again. Thank you.
thank you, Swapna. Thanks.
And for those watching, if you are exploring agentic AI and running into challenges around secure connectivity, interoperability, and policy enforcement, make sure to check out this new foundation and obviously check out Tetrate and its solution. And always, don't forget to subscribe to TFR, like this video, and share it with your team. Thanks for watching.